A group of 11 Republicans want Attorney General Jeff Sessions to investigate a number of Obama administration appointees and officials. Among those they are targeting former FBI Director James Comey, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and Attorney General Loretta Lynch. This comes as Comey makes the rounds to promote his new book and engages in a back-and-forth battle with President Trump. What exactly do these lawmakers want Sessions to investigate? Joining me now from our D.C. Bureau is one of the House Republicans who is calling for this probe, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Thank you so much for being with me, Congresswoman. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you, too.
First, I want to ask about the timing of this. I mean, are you doing this because of Comey and the very high-profile circuit that he is engaged in terms of pushing his book?
Actually, no. I mean, this is just one of a number of initiatives that we've taken. First of all, I joined a letter with Congressman Lee Zeldin and others to ask for a special counsel, a second special counsel to look into a lot of these things. So it's been something that's been long underway and long looked at and long asked for by, I might add, my constituents who, still want to have equal justice under the law. They want to see equal prosecution or views at whoever is committing injustices or violating our laws, regardless of party, regardless of whether or not they've already left office, and make sure that we're doing this equally. And I think that selective prosecution is something that affects everyone, even just someone like me, my own hometown or an average citizen,
Well, so you're saying that your constituents are writing and calling in and asking you to pressure Mr. Sessions to look into this because of a perceived bias regarding too much...
you're putting words in my mouth. Here's what it is. My constituents, even last year, have called into question and asked, why aren't we also prosecuting and looking into what happened in the past under the Obama administration with Hillary Clinton's emails and her server and bleach bidding emails and not turning them over, and Loretta Lynch meeting Bill Clinton on the tarmac, and some of the things that have gone on. Comey coming out famously and saying, we're making the case to prosecute Hillary Clinton, and then saying, in the end, we shouldn't be prosecuting her.
Well, she did lose the election, though, and he has suggested that perhaps he had something to do with it, and he feels chagrined about that.
What does that have to do with anything, really? I mean, truthfully, just because you lose an election, now you get to get out of Dodge. I think when you look, it's not just Hillary Clinton. We asked for a number of people to be looked at, violations with, and if you look at the letter, the letter is very detailed.
Yes.
It puts forth exactly who did what and what violations of law we think they should look into to investigate to see if these things have done.
He has assigned a federal prosecutor. That's not sufficient, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, we actually wrote the letter to the federal prosecutor, John Huber, and we also wrote a letter to Christopher Wray, obviously the new FBI director. But these are important issues. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we need to restore the credibility of the FBI. It's an important institution. Our federal government should not be selectively prosecuting and deciding who we're going to go after just because they're a Democrat or Republican. And this could happen on either side of the aisle. It's happened on both sides, and I think that we need to look at these serious issues and make sure that we're following through with that.
Do you
it's
think,
just a law and order issue.
That the FBI should indeed be following through on investigating Michael Cohen, the personal attorney to Donald Trump?
Sir, if there is something there that they've obviously received the ability to go before a court, to get a subpoena, to raid his office, and they're going after him based on election law, let me go right to the issue. Fusion GPS and the Perkins Coie law firm used money to provide the so-called dossier for the research on Hillary Clinton, and none of that was disclosed under federal election law. Let's look and see if federal election law was violated by them, and whether it should have been investigated. That would be done with anyone running for office, even after you're out of office, whether you lose or not. I mean, the question should not be, if you're out of office, you get out of Dodge and nobody prosecutes you anymore.
So are you
The question should be, if you violate law, you should be looked at or maybe brought before a jury of your peers and make them decide.
Okay, the Democrats have suggested that what you're really trying to do here with your colleagues is to undermine the special prosecutor's probe into the potential meddling by Russia into the 2016
absolutely not.
election.
And we know, no one's calling for that. No one's calling for the to remove Mueller in this letter. This letter is saying, look, We are going to look into all these things. We're going to uncover everything. And now we look, and guess what we're finding out as documents are being disclosed and texts are being revealed. We're finding out that, oh, look what's been happening all along under the FBI. We're looking at restoring the integrity of the FBI, regardless of which party or which administration is doing this. And we're just looking for equal justice, equal prosecution.
You don't believe, though, that the president should seek to remove Robert Mueller, or do you think that there should be legislation passed, as some Democrats are calling for, to protect him from removal?
Yeah, I don't think it's constitutional to go in and say that we can't, take away the president's authority by removing Mueller. I mean, those are all judgment calls, and those are questions that, I let Mueller complete the investigation, let him find out whether there is Russia collusion or not. So far, no evidence has been presented. I'm not on the committees of jurisdiction with that, but have had access to some of the documents. I've been able to go review them. And I'm just asking for, how about some transparency? How about let's look into everything?
You don't believe there's been any evidence that Russia meddled or sought to meddle in the 2016 presidential election after all that we've seen?
You asked me about, absolutely not. You asked me about collusion with the Trump campaign and the Russians, and whether the Russians, look at Mueller indicted 13 Russian nationals.
Right.
It determined after spending $46 million on the Mueller probe, it turned out that about $1.3 million was spent using the internet and social media, mostly transportation from Russia back and forth to the U.S., and most of the money was spent post-election on anti-Trump rallies as opposed to meddling in the election. But do they meddle in elections? Absolutely. They've been meddling in elections all over the world, and not to mention the fact that our own administration, the Obama administration, meddled in an election in Israel when Netanyahu was running. So, yeah, I mean, of course they're meddling in our elections. The Russians don't have the economy and the resources that we do, but they have a geopolitical genius who's evil, who's running their country,
okay. So
who is
should
very
we be
clever
placing
and
sanctions on Russia,
us.
in your opinion, since we're on the topic?
Yes.
We should.
I do support sanctions. Look at Vladimir Putin does not have the resources that we have, but what he has is he's got the ability to manipulate the American people. He's got us all at odds ends. Fingers are pointing in every which way. Let's get together as Democrats and Republicans, restore the integrity of our government, and not be engaging in this political and selective prosecution. Let's look at all these things through, a lens of, fair justice, equality, and those things that we would like to have our country restored to.
Congresswoman,
because look we're all in situations where if you're not the party in power, or you're someone
you are the party in power,
level,
actually. You're the party in power as the president is the party in power.
But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm creating a scenario. In the case of an average citizen, if you are in your local district and you're not the party in power, and regardless, I mean, I know people who have felt that they were undermined because they didn't have the clout, because they were a Democrat and the Republicans were in power. They were Republican and the Democrats were in power. That shouldn't be the case with law enforcement, especially a revered institution like the FBI.
Before we run out of time, you are actually in an election year. The Democrats are seeking to take over your seat. They're seeking to take over the majority, but your seat is one that's targeted. Assemblyman Brindisi is the Democrat who's running against you. Are you not concerned that, he's basically used pretty much everything you said as fodder against you, and you've been pointing fingers and verbal accusations back and forth. Are you not concerned that he's going to take this and use this to cast you as too conservative, too allied with Trump, who is not popular in the state overall, though the further away you get from New York City, of course, it does change somewhat, he will say that you have misplaced concern, not necessarily placed on the needs of the district?
Yeah, the last thing I think about is what Anthony Brindisi is doing. I think, they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I watch Anthony Brindisi running the Claudia Tenney campaign every single day. He's standing for what I stand for. When asked directly, how do you feel about an assault weapons ban, he was mum. When he was asked about impeaching Trump, he was mum. He knows that President Trump won my district, our district, NY22, by 16 points. I'd like to see the media ask him some of the tough questions that they're asking me, and I just do what I've always done because I tell the truth. I call it as I see it. I'm going to continue to say that, say what I say, because I haven't said a controversial thing yet. I've had the Democratic Campaign Committee come in and twist and smear just about everything I say to turn it into a controversy and to turn it into a money-making newsletter that they're using to collect money for my opponent. And it's just, that's what they're going to do. I mean, this is a race that's very competitive, but remember, it's also a Republican district.
Right.
It's also won very much by Donald Trump. My opponent is very flawed. He is very linked to Sheldon Silver, who helped him run his race. He's linked to Governor Cuomo. He was recently made a comment earlier this year referring to people who opposed any of his ideas as idiots. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I'm running against.
All right.
And, look, everything's fodder in a campaign year. And I just, the media is always on the side of the other side, but I'm going to continue to fight the fight. I was outspent $16 million to $3
Congresswoman,
in 2016.
I do
so
appreciate your time.
About it.
I do appreciate your time and your willingness
so
to come on the show, but we're out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.